And welcome to the Daily Space Weather. Smasho here, coming at you from the Smash News Network, least busted name in news, just bringing you the most comprehensive space weather and most detailed imagery you'll find anywhere of the closest star. So thanks for tuning in. Congratulations on realizing that the channel exists. We've got some filamentary reorientation happening up here. The Bagashov filament has partially collapsed, crossing the equator and splashing back down toward the chromosphere. We've also got the Kamala Harris filament down here. That one's remained stable. Also the Chuck Schumer filament up here. So we're now naming filaments. Let us know if you've got great names for filaments. Let's take a closer look at what's going on in the northern hemisphere. Also some activity up there in the northwest. Solar activity has overall dropped over the past 24 hours. But as always, there is always some action to find if you know what you're looking for. So there are those filaments in the southern hemisphere. Great imagery there in 193 plus 304 angstroms. And we've got some missing data here, I guess, on the SDO site, so we're going to only show that for a limited period. That's the SDO intensity gram. Here's some more limited data, the SDO magnetogram. Don't worry, we've got more detailed imagery coming. And let's do a volcano rundown. So Shiveluch, producing a 12,000-foot ash plume, flight level 120 over the Kamchatka Peninsula. Abiko, 10,000-foot ash plume, flight level 100 over Abiko. Now, Mount Alade is exploding. It's producing a flight level 160. So some activity there now on the list. The northern Kurils, that's south of Kamchatka Peninsula. Flight level 160 over Alade. An effusive explosive eruption continues at moderate levels. Also lava flow spilling out from the summit vent. Summit vent remains active on the southern flank. Popocatépetl exploding, flight level 220 over central Mexico from Popocatépetl. A large producer of sulfur dioxide, I might add. And of course, we've also got Fuego in Guatemala producing a flight level 150 as it explodes. Sangre flight level 190. I believe that's an uptick there over Ecuador. So Sangre there erupting in an explosive fashion, producing a 19,000-foot ash plume. Cotopaxi producing a 22,000-foot ash plume. As Cotopaxi now explodes, flight level 220 over Ecuador from Cotopaxi, and then Sabancaya, continuous emissions from Sabancaya. No indication on the volcanic ash plume size. Next, looking at your volcano discovery 90-day bar graph. It's been fairly calm. We've seen a bunch of earthquakes over Alaska in the past 24 hours. No major quakes, but some in the 5 magnitude range. The largest was, I believe, a 5.7. There was a 5.0 at Fiji. There was a 5.1 at the Solomon Islands. And then a 5.7 at the Solomon Islands there, northeast of Australia. And if we miss any quakes that you'd like us to highlight, let us know in the comments. These videos are an interactive experience. South Sandwich Islands had a 5.0. Kamchatka Peninsula had a 5.0. Continued earthquakes occurring in Texas. Also a 4.9 at Vancouver Island. There's your Cascadia Fault Zone earthquake. The Northern Mariana Islands had a 5.6, followed only 10 minutes later by a 5.2. Looks like an aftershock. And remember, folks, any earthquake can be a foreshock. Before we get back to space, I would remind you all, if you don't have a Twitter account, to create one. Get yourself on Twitter. If you're using social media, well, Twitter may or may not be the place to be. I mean, it's completely broken, pathetic, rife with censorship, and a joke. It continues to promote stale, parroted, boring ideas from already rich and famous celebrities. However, it is still a place to share things like auroral imagery. You can also find our links there, including a link to ShoreMed. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. Also links to the Smash Team, smashomash.com/Smash Team. If you want to support the channel via subscription services, become a member of the Smash Team at the gold or silver subscription level. Thanks to everybody who has throughout the years. We just launched it in October 2021. So the best value is the gold annual paid-up subscription membership. Thanks again to our Smash Team members. There's a credit crawl coming back like we used to have on Patreon. So if you want your name in lights, our plasma lettering will appear with your name. If you wish, you can find links to SureMed on the Smash Team page as well. Right there is a link to SureMed. It's not insurance, it's an association membership, although the group does allow you to purchase insurance, only available to group members. Enrollment in SureMed is an enrollment in the association of the American Better Health Organization, focused on improving your health. You get doctors by phone, counselors by phone, virtual veterinarians, because your pet's health might impact yours. So check it out. Also save 15 to 50% on your dental bills. Save up to 60% on prescription eyeglasses, for example, through the vision discounts, health advocate solutions, counselors by phone, savings on vitamins, labs, diabetic supplies, MRI and CT scans. Maybe add accident insurance to your SureMed membership with a Plus membership. And let's get back to space. So thanks once again, all of you spaced out viewers who've tuned in. Once again, congratulations on realizing the channel exists. Here's the last 24 in 171 angstroms. You can see the Eugene Bagashov filament collapse up here. It is still partially intact as it rises over the northeastern limb. And let's add 335 angstroms to this view to show a little bit more depth and detail of the atmosphere of the closest star, known as the solar corona. Now, once again, we did see a drop in solar activity since yesterday, a continued drop, a little bit of growth of sunspot 3152, but besides that, a reduction in solar activity. Radio flux now at only 109 solar flux units. And by the way, we've heard people talking nonsense about solar cycles as well, that there's some kind of a 6-month, roughly, activity cycle, and predicting an increase in solar activity in January and February because reasons. Except, here's the problem. We should see an increase in solar activity in December if there's a 6-month solar activity cycle, and yet we're not seeing it so far, so it better happen quickly. And people better understand how to count to 6 months before they make ridiculous forecasts based on nothing other than conjecture, I suppose. Who knows? Because once you shatter your credibility, we stop paying attention. But that's the 1-year graph. The black line is the 10.7 centimeter radio flux, and the red line is a sunspot number. Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard not forecasting any geomagnetic storm conditions. We are seeing a continued high-speed coronal hole wind stream. We'll get to the stats on that first. The last 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from space. And thanks for leaving comments, Bruce. We lava your comments. So this is the last 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from space. The scale here is, the units here are nanopascals, magnetohydrodynamic pressure, and here is Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. So once again, the last 4 hours, it'll show you the most likely places to see things like aurora, pipeline, rail line, and electrical grid induction. The ground magnetic perturbations map. The units here are nanotesla magnetic flux density, and let's move on to continue with the daily space weather. The planetary K-index here nearly 4, pushing geomagnetic unrest conditions. We did reach geomagnetic unrest conditions for a couple brief moments here during this coronal hole high-speed stream. At the moment, we've got a 3.67 for the planetary K-index. 3.67 is the planetary K-index, a measurement of global geomagnetism. So this coronal hole high-speed stream did make it up over 550 for a moment. It actually made it a little over 560 there for a minute yesterday, but it's been subsiding a bit since then. Current conditions are about 500 kilometers per second for the speed. Solar wind density about 11 protons per cubic centimeter. Besides that, thing's pretty unremarkable there. Just a steady coronal hole high-speed stream. And Bruce astutely points out that there was a moment here where we had a strong negative BZ signal. That was the strongest period of geomagnetic unrest, because that's the vertical component of the magnetic field, and a negative BZ has a tendency to induce more geomagnetism through induced currents. All right, next goes magnetometers here. We're seeing some low highs, actually. Some low highs and some low lows there on the ghost magnetometers over the past 3 days. We've got a lot of coronal holes to cover here, so let's move it. The top view ecliptic plane field plot there showing the heliospheric current sheet. Earth remains in a North Pole current sheet shown there in green. Here is the line of sight field plot, which, like yesterday, stopped playing because reasons. So there's the sun's B field in blue, solar polar fields in green for north, red for south. And let's move to coronal holes. So here's the coronal hole view. That is part of the National Sunspot Observatory, by the way. This data is gathered from 51 ground-based solar magnetometers, as well as magnetometers on stereo A and stereo B. So lots of North Pole-oriented coronal holes here in the earthly-facing portion of the solar disk. Let's take a look at that in 211 angstroms. There you go. The sun's being helpful here. It's making a giant N. There you go. N for North Pole. Those are North Pole-oriented coronal holes. This group down here in the south, that is a South Pole-oriented coronal hole. Another indication that solar cycle 25 is not even halfway to solar maximum, at least in terms of the field migration process. The solar polar fields flip, and they are taking their good old time here. We're expecting a sudden conflagration of activity because it's going to accelerate. It always does. Let's move to sunspots. And no changes there in the sunspot number, it looks like. Although 3152 did grow a little bit. Let's take some imagery of that. So here's the SDO continuum plus 94 angstroms. Here's a zoom into those same wavelengths. And here are some additional images. Here's the 94 angstroms subtracted from that. Here's your SDO magnetometer. And one last thing, let's look at the continuum plus ionized carbon. So 1600 angstroms is ionized carbon. And what that is when you see the bright areas there, those whitish areas, those are areas that are high in ionized carbon. The darker areas low in ionized carbon. You can see the way it fixates around active regions and sunspots. Much higher concentrations of ionized carbon on the surface of the sun around active regions than around inactive regions. Lots of chemistry going on in the solar corona. Next, we'll move to energetic particles. No spikes in the proton flux. No relativistic particles showing up. And looking at solar flaring, it's been quite minor. Only one C-class flare in the past 24 hours. Here's 131 angstroms, which is the hottest wavelength, by the way, of all the AIA. Join our Discord chat for more information about that. We posted some screenshots yesterday explaining what 131 angstroms is. You can find the Discord permanent invite link on the homepage at smashomash.com. So that was the last 24 hours. Again, smashomash.com. Welcome to the Neo Renaissance. Help us out with clicks. In other words, click our links. Maybe become a patron. If you don't like our own subscription service, smashomash.com/smashteam. We are still on Patreon. And more about Patreon coming soon. Again, we are bringing back our credit crawl. We are still in the process of composing a paper plausibly explaining the solar sunspot cycles and solar polar field reversal cycles. SmashOnMash.com. Welcome to the Neo-Renaissance. You can also find links to our Hemp Lucid shop there. If you do so, you may find some new products here. Functional mushroom gummies. Do you want to increase your focus? Increase your sleep? What about decrease your stress? Check out the functional mushroom gummies. Lots of great gift ideas on the Hemp Lucid shop, so if you're shopping for such things, why not shop through our link and support the channel that way? Give Smash staff a raise through our latest affiliate/sponsor, Hemp Lucid. Shout out to Hemp Lucid. Not sure what to try? Well, try some recommendations. Visit the links, again, on the homepage at smashonmash.com. And thanks to each of our viewers for supporting the channel with likes, subscribes, etc. Next, we've got a star chart. If you want to make your own, head to in-the-sky.org. Click on all sky charts, put in your zip code. You'll see what's going on above your head. The galaxy is setting over Lehigh Valley, which is that blue line to the left. Also Mars up there. Setting in the west as Cygnus rises in the north-northeast. Is that Deneb just coming over the horizon? Indeed it is. Deneb, the brightest object visible from our solar system. If you want to use our planet chart that we use regularly, our planet diagram, it's theplanetstoday.com. Once again, keep in mind it's not to scale. Here's our solar system forecast for the next week. We've got a crescent waxing. And in 1 week, we will have a gibbous waxing as we approach the December full moon. That's where things will be on December 3rd. Continuing on to some coronagraphs. Here's yesterday's coronagraphs from George Mason University. Not a lot of CMEs on those 82 frames. Let's take a look at today, as it got a little bit more interesting. After midnight, some CMEs came out. After midnight, Universal Time. Anyway, there's yesterday. I don't believe those are earthly directed either. We do have a little bit of missing data, though, so let's take a look at that. Stereo A at Lagrange 5 and the Soho Lasco C3 at Lagrange 1. There are those coronagraphs. We don't see anything in the earthly pipeline here. It looks like there's activity on the far side of the sun, which often looks like a halo. So you've got activity over here, but the Earth would be off in this direction from the perspective of Stereo A. So no indication there are any earthly directed CMEs there. Some interesting fireworks, but they don't appear to be earthly oriented. We've got some great 24-hour videos of that. SDO 304 angstroms plus the Soho Lasco C2 and C3 coronagraphs. Yep, those are on the far side because you can see this filament eruption right up here. That is happening from a point on the sun that's out of sight from Earth's perspective. Here's a zoom out. Again, not earthly directed coronal mass ejections as far as we can tell. Sometimes you have to use a little deduction to figure out where those things are headed. So looking at filaments here, and of course we've named some filaments. This prominence up here, this is actually the Eugene Bagashov prominence, which is still partially intact. Down here we've got the Kamala Harris filament, and up here we've got the Chuck Schumer filament. Let us know what this one ought to be called. Let us know what you think that filament should be titled. We're naming filaments after people now, preferably living ones. It's more fun. So, but lots of filaments in the Earth-facing zone here. The likelihood of coronal mass ejections remains at nearly 100%. Huge number of filaments, and once again, remember, you do not need to see solar flares or even sunspots to see coronal mass ejections. So here's the GO 16 SUVI for the past couple of hours. It's usually about 2.5 hours there. Things pretty calm here at the moment. And what's great about the Go 16 SUVi is the wide field of view. What's great about the SDO is the high resolution. So here's a much more narrower field of view for the last 24 hours. SDO 304 angstroms. Same wavelength, different spacecraft. Some splentacular activity there in both the northeast and northwest limbs. And it's time to do bonus features. If you're wondering what's going on with satellites, well, what's going on is some surface charging over the central Pacific and a little bit over Mexico. Some surface charging hazards there caused by low energy electrons building up on the surfaces of satellites. There's the GOES electron flux for the past 3 days. And it is pretty chill there. Low levels of electron flux as we typically see during coronal hole high-speed streams. And NOAA forecasting a big uptick there. Once a coronal hole high-speed stream ends, you can expect a significant uptick there in the electron flux. I would tend to agree with that. There's the 1-year graph to put that in context. Again, low levels of electron flux as are typically accompanied by coronal hole high-speed streams. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? And the answer is we don't really know. Here is the diagram showing electromagnetic radiation penetration, thermospheric temperatures at solar minimum versus maximum, also molecular concentrations in different portions of the thermosphere, because next we're showing the F ionosphere layer. So we'll show the vibrational frequency as well as the anomalygram. There is the raw vibrational data in megahertz, millions of vibrations per second. We do see some new anomalies here showing up, which will be really evident on the anomalygram, so we'll show that next. So here's the anomalygram. You can see some low-frequency anomalies here showing up now south of the equator. Keep in mind the weakest point in Earth's magnetosphere is right here, the South Atlantic anomaly, which is now over the South American continent. And you can actually see evidence of that on the ionosphere map. You can sort of see where that is likely to be. You see wild swings in the anomalygram there. That is right where the South Atlantic anomaly is. So also seeing some low-frequency anomalies there in various places. That is anomaly in megahertz from a 30-day median. And let's bring up the latest image. There's ionogram from 11:30 Universal Time. There is anomalygram from 11:30 Universal Time. Next we'll move to the total electron content, showing the free electrons in between your GPS satellite and your handset. That's the Australian Government Bureau of Meteorology, by the way. And let's take a look at an animation of the total electron content, courtesy of the Space Weather Prediction Center. So this will show you the most likely places for GPS errors. When your GPS satellite must communicate through a lot of free electrons, the signal gets refracted. It could be off by thousands of miles. We've had average speed bike rides of 10,000 miles per hour because of GPS errors over the U.S., where my GPS tracker thought that I rode from Pennsylvania to Missouri in like 40 minutes. Yes, if you see an average speed of 10,000 miles an hour for a bicycle ride, you may have seen a GPS error occur. If your helmet didn't melt, you probably weren't going 10,000 miles an hour. So that's the total electron content forecast. And let's move to our closing features here for our space weather section before we move to meteorology. There's the latest intensitygram and latest colorized magnetogram. Again, not a lot of changes happening here. A little bit of growth from sunspot 3152, I believe. There are the fields. That is the most likely place to see significant solar flares. It is beta gamma class. I don't think beta gamma delta class. This sunspot down here is exhibiting some complexity as well. Anyway, and let's close out the space weather video with, we'll do Iron Star. And sadly, we've got some missing data there as well. So just some fleeting images there. It should be yesterday plus today in great smooth animation. Something going on with the SDO site, it looks like. Some limited data showing up. So let's move to the realm of meteorology. And what we're looking at here is ocean currents, by the way, and just citing fact after fact in the video. It's all in good fun here at the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. So these are ocean currents. If you're not familiar with ocean currents, that's the way they operate. Most of them around the equator. And we regularly look at the Gulf Stream, so let's do that, which is continuing to prevent places from becoming a complete snowball all year round. Places like Europe. How about Ireland and Iceland? Gulf Stream still making its way up there. Interestingly enough, we do have some currents flowing down toward the Gulf Stream. So you can see some currents like this. But not causing any major disruption, it looks like, as they are still making it to Europe, preventing a year without a summer. A lot of people forecasted a year without a summer for the past, I don't know how many years, but people are forecasting a year without a summer in Europe. How did that work out? Was that an accurate prediction? Let us know in the comments what you think. All right, so next we're looking at surface winds of the eastern world. There we go. There are those. Here are jet streams of the eastern world. Let's blast through some more meteorology content. Here are the here are the jet streams of the western world. Quite a chaotic jet stream there over the U.S. at the moment. Some big bends, a doubled up jet stream over the Great Lakes region. Here are the surface winds. We've got some strong storms kicking up. There's a low pressure forming over East Texas, and it's going to intensify. We'll tell you more about that a little bit later. Here are the surface winds of the central world. By the way, we're using nullschool.net's Earth Sky Map. Check it out if you haven't. Nullschool.net. It's splentacular. And there are the jet streams of Europe, Asia, and Africa. Next, looking at clouds and fog over the Americas. It's a 3.9 nanometer radiation satellite. And of course, NASA has taken the croissant-shaped image and projected it onto a spherical template. Now, everybody that watches our channel is well aware that the Earth is croissant-shaped. We wish you'd stop believing NASA's lies as NASA attempts to convince you that Earth is spherical. I mean, everybody knows Earth is croissant-shaped. Of course, that's part of the reason why we only have 2.6 thousand subscribers on YouTube, is because YouTube is trying to hide the fact that Earth is shaped like the French pastry. Next, today's featured product is Do Not Pole Vault the Caldera. It's our second bestseller. You can save 20 to 60% site-wide by picking up some products. So help support the channel that way. Give Smash staff a raise and help advertise and put out the message of positivity. Don't come up with a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you're visiting a volcanic caldera, leave your vault pole at home and don't pole vault the caldera. By the way, if you weren't aware, the duvet cover, it does indeed have a cotton backing. Yes, cotton backing on the duvet cover. Maybe pick yourself up a shower curtain. The great colorful print design there features our YouTube channel, as well as smashomash.com. We've got the socks, which are quite comfy. And a few people have picked those up. Once again, thanks for leaving so many comments. Bruce, the Batman from Brazil. So don't pole vault the caldera. If you're going through hell, keep going. Our finest days lie ahead. And our merch is just splentacular. The print quality is sensational. Again, you can find links below the video as well as on the homepage at smashomash.com to the Smasho merch. Save 20 to 60% site-wide as the 5 days of deals continue. Our items are listed in order of best-selling if you click the link. And of course, our bestseller in the upper left contains words that shall not be mentioned because reasons. You're only allowed to say certain words on certain video hosting platforms, if you know what I mean. I think you are still allowed to define the word fraud, though, which means an intentional misrepresentation of material facts. Moving right along here, to recommend that you press like, subscribe, and share. If you're new to the channel, congratulations on realizing it exists. Tell us how you found it. We've made some changes to our playlists, so check those out if you haven't seen them, like terms defined. Are you familiar with the term sharticle? Well, we define it. Do you know anything about cosmology? Well, we've got a playlist with over 250 videos. Smashomash.org presents The Sun. What about driving, riding, and pro tips? The diamond anvil too hard to smash. Do one thing because the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Press like, press subscribe, press share, tell your friends and foes, and leave a comment. And back to weather here with our weather.gov map. We've got some fog in the eastern U.S. We've got some gale warnings around the Gulf Coast. Or are those high surf advisories? Anyway, whatever they are, click your county or your waterway. Small craft advisories, hazardous seas warnings, I don't know, something like that. But there's the key. Again, if your area is lit, click your county on weather.gov. We've got some strong storms building around southeast Texas. So here's your GFS total accumulated precipitation in inches for the next 72 hours. That's a GFS forecast for total accumulated precipitation. Going to be quite a bit of precipitation here in the eastern U.S. Some significant rain totals there, especially in Alabama and Georgia. Continuing on to our pressure and precipitation forecast. Strong low is going to form around East Texas and then move to the northeast as snow continues to fall in the northwest. Let's check our snow totals based on the same model. This is the 72-hour GFS accumulated positive snow depth change forecast in inches. Wyoming about to get re-blanketed. Also most of Idaho. Large portions of Montana, Washington, Oregon, Nevada, California, Utah, Colorado, and portions of New Mexico and Texas. To see additional snow here in the next 72 hours. Again, that's a GFS snow depth change forecast. Next, we've got the European pressure forecast. We're going to zoom in a little bit here on this pressure that's forming in southeast Texas, right around Houston. And as we let this advance here, you're going to see this intensify a little bit and grow. It's going to move up through Arkansas, Missouri. It's going to make a little bit of a turn to the east here as it approaches the Great Lakes, becoming quite a large low pressure there. It's going to continue up through Maine, Nova Scotia, and Newfoundland. Another strong low there forming over Denver after that. And that one will be moving east. That is your European pressure forecast from windy.com. And let's take a look at lightning. We've had some severe lightning here over East Texas. Yowzers. Let's check our real-time lightning map to see if there's any going on at the moment. We may have some active cells. Certainly some in the Gulf. Do we have any terrestrial strikes? Doesn't look like it, but some strong storms there in the western Gulf. That is not a good place to be shrimping. Next, radar.weather.gov showing Doppler radar maps. Let's focus on the lower 48. there is that. Here is, we experienced some technical difficulties. So please bear with us while we bring up the imagery that we want. We've got to resubmit. To show you the water vapor. So there is the shortwave radiation map showing clouds and fog. There is water vapor. Again, you can see those multiple jet stream interactions happening here. This moisture here is colliding with some dry, cold, more massive air. This is a relative high pressure system acting like a wall as that moisture tries to head north and is forced to the east. Here's your recap, U.S. Doppler radar. Oh, and by the way, this right here, this is not HARP. That is the end of the array's range. So there's rain over here also. You just can't see it because that's where the radar array ends. That is not anything artificial. That is the limitation of the ground-based system measuring the vertical motion of water droplets. Here's your recap shortwave radiation. And when your Doppler's not giving you the full Monty, break out the water vapor map, it will hook you up. And thanks for letting us hook you up with so many space weather and earth weather facts. In the meantime, I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off from the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. Opinions expressed in this video, not necessarily the opinions of Smash News Network, least busted name in news.